when I get the stems, unfortunately, my laptop got stolen, so all the project's files were gone.
I wanna dance by water beneath the Mexican sky. Drink some margaritas by swinging blue lights. Listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me?
What's up, everybody? My name is Lost Frequencies, and this is the story of Are You With Me? When I was growing up, my parents, they were listening to a bit of everything. I would say more variété française, which is more like French kind of speaking music. I got into dance music when I discovered it on the radio. There was no Shazam, so they had to say the name of the artist, and then I went online, tried to find it out. I was finding some magazines where they were talking about new releases, and I was trying to find them online. And then at some point I discovered some blogs on the internet where I could find like some guys writing about music. Any kind of electronic music back in the days I was finding, I was loving. And then I went to a boarding school where I was surrounded by people that were like into DJing and into electronic music. Everybody at the school was listening to electronic music. Everybody went home for the weekends, and then we all came back during the week at school, and like everybody had kind of an iPod or like an MP3 player, and we were sharing the music we discovered. So that was my first experience in electronic music. So it wasn't even club-based, nightclub-based. It was really more about loving the sound and discovering it online and sharing it with my friends. I always wanted to be the guy that made the music instead of the guy that played them. So once I got my first laptop, I opened GarageBand, and I started to produce on there small demos. I put them on YouTube and on SoundCloud. And then I had a piano teacher, which was also a mix engineer. He gave me Reason 5, which was pretty cool because Reason is a very like game-ish interface where you can turn the synthesizer around. You plug them into each other, like into the compressor and EQs, and then you have one rack and one page with the arrangement. So that was a really fun first interface for me, which was a bit more professional than GarageBand, where I could really start to do some sound design and import samples and do some more crazy stuff than with GarageBand.
I wanna dance by water beneath the Mexican sky. Drink some margaritas by swinging blue lights. Listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me? Are you with me?
When I started to produce electronic music, because I also tried to produce a lot of different kind of stuff, but I always came back to just kind of house-influenced kind of style. I felt that all the music I found that was electronic-based was always a bit rough, you know. It was always like synthesizers and always like heavily on the digital stuff, and I was missing maybe organic instruments. I love the guitars, so I was looking for some tracks to sample guitars, to use them quite purely, and then just put the electronic beat underneath. And I heard Easton Corbin on SoundCloud, which was like a 1-minute version of the track.
Dance by the water beneath the Mexican sky.
The beginning of the track is just the 4 loops of the guitar, and then it's 4 loops with the vocal, and then drums come in, etc. So I thought this is super easy to sample. I just have to take it, speed it up, because I have the guitar, then I have the guitar with the vocal. It was an easy sample, so I took it and I sampled it and sped it up and put it on SoundCloud. I made the track quite quickly. At that time I was making maybe 2-3 tracks a week that I was uploading on SoundCloud, because I felt like the more I was posting, maybe I had more chance to get reposted on the YouTube channel or to be reposted on SoundCloud. The Are You With Me track was maybe produced in 2-3 days maximum.
Listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me? Are you with me?
When Armada got in touch with me, they actually just hired a new A&R. This guy sent a lot of messages to all the upcoming guys that I knew, because we all knew each other from the community, from that sound. And so we all got an email from this guy from Armada. We thought it was a scam. I answered to the guys from Armada like, hey, I would be down to release this track, but it's a remix. Maybe because you guys have contacts, maybe we could clear it and get it out. They never answered after that mail. So I called them. You sent me an email, you never answered me about this track. And he goes, it's a cool track, let me check it out, maybe we can do something. Then they did a session, I think in London, where they re-recorded everything. So they re-recorded the guitars, they re-recorded the vocals. And from there on, they asked me to reproduce the track. And then when I get the stems, unfortunately, my laptop got stolen. So all the project's files were gone. So I had to reproduce the same version all over again. Back in that time, I didn't have a lot of sample packs, so I knew exactly which one I used and which synthesizer I used, because also I had like 2 synthesizers. So it was quite easy to go back to it and send it over to Armada, and then it gets signed and it gets released. In one mail chain, like somebody told me like, hey, I was a singer, but we asked him also to come over to do some promos, but he didn't want to be like a public face, which was a bit unfortunate because it was then also hard for the promo of the track. So what we did in the end is I collaborated with a Dutch singer, Lea Roux, female vocal singer, which I thought was quite cool because then there would be no confusion about who is this girl, like is she the voice from the track? No, she isn't, because obviously she's not the one from the original versions. I also made another track with her. We were then playing those 2 tracks together, which then makes sense for the whole story, which was then a fun promo for the track. And we actually did a lot of radio stations back in the days with the 3 of us, also with the guitarist. We went around and we did a lot of promos.
Are you with me? I wanna dance by the water, need the Mexican sky. A drink to margaritas by a string of blue light. Listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me? Are you with me? I wanna dance by the water, need the Mexican sky. Drink some margaritas by a string of blue light. Listen to the mariachi play at midnight.
Started playing on the radio in Belgium because I sent an email to a radio, and then one Sunday I heard the track on the radio and I was super excited, and then it got good reviews, so they put it in the C playlist, and then one of the other main big radios in Belgium took it and made it the hit of the week, which was like kind of the power play. They played it like 7-8 times a day, and then from there it went #1 Shazam, and then it just went #1 in the iTunes store and everywhere in Europe after that.
Yes, this next performance comes from a Belgian DJ and producer who clocked up well over 100 million hits on YouTube with this next song.
That's right, it was a smash in 10 countries and it was #1 here in the UK too.
This is Lost Frequencies.
I wanna dance by the one beneath the Mexican sky. Drink some margaritas by a string of blue light. Listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me? Are you with me?
It was quite dull. I remembering it being like, I'm on my touchpad, you know, triggering the loops. You have the guy on the guitar and the girl singing in front, which was quite cool. But I wish I knew more about, you know, putting it all together and have like interactions with everyone, you know, like I was super shy actually back in the days. So don't show me the video, please. But I'm happy to say that I did it because it was a super fun experience.
Are you with me?
It was nice to be able to do all these shows. But then again, I think I didn't have a lot of tracks out. I had a bunch of remixes and tracks on SoundCloud that were out. But today, when you come to see me at a show, I play almost only my music because that's what makes me the most proud. Back then, I was like playing 1 of 2 or 3 tracks of mine, and then I was playing a lot of other tracks, more like really like a DJ. But I never really considered myself as a really talented DJ. So I think I'm more at my place today as a producer where I present all my productions and I can play them in the format of DJ sets. We also did live shows for 3-4 years where we were with a band on stage, which was also super cool to present my music in a different way. It's been fun to see how everything has been growing and settling into itself.
Are you with me? Are you with me?
Are You With Me put a really nice layer for me to start on. Also today I still love the track. I think it's still a very nice vocal, it's a very nice sound. You know, I don't really cringe when I listen to my first hits where I think sometimes people can have. You know, I'm blessed to have quite a few big hits, and I feel sometimes when you go see DJs that have like really massive hits, they play for 2-3 hours and they don't play it. I feel it's a bit a shame because A lot of people wish for that. You feel the unity. Suddenly you have everybody knows the track. Even people that were not there for this DJ, they know the track. Everybody sings and dances to this. It creates a really nice vibe. I was very scared to be a one-hit wonder because at that moment there was quite a few DJs arriving with a big single and then disappearing as quickly as they arrived. So I was very scared of that. So when I released my second single, Reality, I was again #1 in airplay in Europe. Then we went to an album, which was Less Is More, which got also good feedbacks, and I was like, nice, we can continue and let's do it. So now we are 11, 12 years later, I'm still doing it, so I guess it was a good idea. I did create a lot of different versions of the track. I think it's funny to see that all these versions still always worked with the crowd and people were always interactive with the track, and I never had also a comment about someone saying like this version was super bad or something like that. Like it's always a good moment and it's always create like this unity, which I really like.